Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to take you through an oil change on my BMW RS 2015 model. Now, some of you who have watched some of my previous videos might be asking, where's the GTL that I used to have? Well, unfortunately I have to say I ran into some problems with that bike. One day I came back from a breakfast run, and as I slowed down to the stop street I heard a knocking sound. Now obviously the first thing that you think of is a rod knock or a valve knock or whatever the case may be. You think the worst. I took the bike to the nearest workshop and the guy there told me it doesn't really sound like a knock, and you'll have a performance issues as well with the bike, and there was none. So they started with replacing the timing chain tensioner, which didn't work. Then we went over to the clutch bucket bearing and bush, and that made no difference. Then they wanted to remove the alternator, maybe see if it's an alternator bearing or something. And I just said no. I mean, from now on I was going to have to pay this out of my own pocket, because luckily the two previous repairs was covered by the insurance, but they also drew a line in the sand there and said they're not going to continue paying, because this is now a simple case of trial and error. So what I did was I also took the bike to a BMW dealer just to make sure, and they told me exactly the same thing, that it doesn't sound like a rod knock or anything. They will immediately notice if it's that type of sound. So yeah, I stopped the lorry there, because they also told me now it's going to be a case of trial and error, and I'm definitely don't have the money to pay a BMW dealer to work on the bike for hours on end, and maybe also not find the issue, because I've seen on a lot of forums, especially the one in the USA, that there's been a lot of guys with GTLs that complained about the same problem, and the BMW dealers also replaced the clutch, etc, etc. I even watched a YouTube video where the guy started his bike with exactly the same sound, and BMW also couldn't find the problem. So yeah, I just decided to cut my losses, and I tried my luck. I went to a dealership and they said they'll do me a deal on the bike, and yeah, I ended up with this 2015 1200RS, and I have to say I'm very happy with this bike. No issues, none whatsoever. The boxer engine just have a character all on its own, more than enough power. It's nippy, it's set far more lighter than the GTL. So yeah, it's one of those things, but as I say, it's not a bad deal. This is a fantastic little bike, and I'm quite happy with it. So yeah, let's get back to the oil change. To start off with, to drain the oil, you need to remove the sump plug, and you need a 10 hex bit for that. Okay, so the sump plug is out, so just giving the oil some time to run its course. Okay, now we're going to move over to the oil filter. Now, if you read the heading of my video, you'll see that I'm saying that we're going to do this oil change the layman's way. The reason why I'm saying this, I don't have any fancy tools. I don't have a torque wrench, and I don't have an oil filter socket. And guys, you don't need these items to do an oil change. What I'm going to show you here now, I come from a small mining town, and this is just the way we learn to do these type of things. I've forgotten how many times I've changed oil filters on cars and bikes, and we always do it the same way. Now there's an advantage to the way we do this. You'll see I'm just going to take a normal screwdriver and hit a little hole in the bottom. In that way you can basically drain the oil that's already in the filter. Because I've seen, especially on the GTL, a lot of guys, when they remove these oil filters, they have to make a little funnel or something to divert the oil away from the bike. Now when you do this, this is the first advantage of hitting this little hole. So you can drain the remaining oil that's in the filter, you can drain that out. So if you then finally remove the filter, there's not going to be any oil spillage. Oil that's going to come out now out of this filter is just going to fall into the bucket. And the other advantage of doing this is basically you can hit another hole, or you can use the same one depending on the size of the hole and how you feel. You can hit another hole in the filter. This will serve as a type of a wedge. If you put the screwdriver in there, it's almost the same as a strong handle. And you'll see here, it's then just easy to remove this filter without a socket. You just grab it and you just turn it and it will come loose, and by then you'll be able to remove it with just your hand. As simple as that. Now as you can see, there's going to be virtually no oil spillage, none whatsoever. All you need to do now is just give it a nice clean and it's ready for its new filter. I just always like to put a little bit of oil on that rubber seal of the filter. It makes it seal much better when you put the filter back in, and it keeps it from making that awful squeaky noise. Okay, the oil filter is back on, and I think the next question everybody's going to ask is, but how do you tighten the oil filter because you don't have an oil filter socket? Guys, like I said, I've forgotten how many oil filters I've changed in my life, how many cars and bikes I've serviced, and I've never ever had an oil filter socket or a torque wrench. You don't torque an oil filter. It's totally unnecessary. First of all, when you buy various different types of oil filters, all the different company gives you different torque figures. So then what's the use in the first place? You take the oil filter, you screw it on with your bare hands, you turn it clockwise as far as you possibly can, and that's it. You will never have an oil leak, not even as much as a sweat, I guarantee you. I've seen torque figures for oil filters that's up to 20 Newton meters of torque. 20 Newton meters of torque for an oil filter. It's absolutely ridiculous. You don't need a torque wrench and you don't need an oil filter socket. Okay, it's time to put back the drain plug. Just remember to replace the crush washer. You get the crush washer with the oil filter. It will be in the box. There is torque figure available for this sump plug, but it doesn't bother me. You just tighten it with feel and you'll know when you're there. Underneath the rear seat you'll find this little tool. You use that to open up the filler cap where you can pour in the new oil. Okay, that's all 4 liters of the new oil in. Oil is a 5W40 that I bought from BMW together with the filter. I buy it there because it costs exactly the same as any aftermarket oil. Just replace the cap and give it a tight twist. And that's it, all done. I'm just going to start it up and let the oil run through the system. Let it heat up for a while, and then I'm just going to listen to that wonderful pitch exhaust note. Thanks for watching.